The beauty of the orchid around the world. These flowers are quite a diverse group of plants with respect to the large number of shapes and colors they possess. According to the Plan for the Study and Conservation of Orchids, Colombia has 4,270 registered species, of which 1,572 are species exclusive to the country, with an annual generation of 2 million orchids. Mexico is the second largest producer in Latin America after Brazil and ranks third in the world in terms of surface area dedicated to the cultivation of ornamental plants. In particular, it is the seventh largest global producer of Phalaenopsis orchid, appreciated for its ornamental value. Taiwan is the largest producer and exporter of orchids in the world, while the USA and Canada lead in America. One of the main orchids produced in Taiwan now is the Oxidium or dancing orchid that was introduced to Taiwan 2 decades ago. Since 2002, the species has become Taiwan's best-selling cut flower, and those exported go exclusively to Japan. More than 20 million ballerina orchids are shipped there each year, supplying 85% of the demand in the Japanese market. Orchids have been valued for thousands of years. In fact, the mystique of this flower, worthy of the gods, is appreciated by different cultures around the world. Its name is derived from orchis, Greek word meaning testicle. This name is acquired because in some terrestrial species can be observed how the tubers grow in pairs. These flowers belong to the botanical orchid family, which comprises between 25,000 and 30,000 species, and most probably there are about 6,000 hybrids. The beautiful flowers are found all over the world, but they are more abundant in tropical or warm humid regions. In 1981, Singapore adopted orchids as one of its national symbols and is one of the places that currently manages conservation programs for these specimens, due to the high number of extinct species in this nation because of deforestation. The geographical location of Singapore provides a suitable climate for the production of these plants thanks to its proximity to the equator. Unfortunately, many of the natural and optimal habitats for the growth of orchids have disappeared due to ecological destruction. Singapore offers exhibitions of its orchids around the world. Also has the National Orchid Garden, located in the center of the Singapore Botanic Gardens, and is a world leader in orchid hybridization, research and conservation. Since its opening in 1995, the National Orchid Garden has showcased the finest and rarest species of the plant for the people of Singapore and its visitors. There you can see more than 60,000 different plants with over 1,000 species and 2,000 hybrids. You can enjoy the 4 color zones of the gardens. You can see blues and whites in the winter zone or warm reds and pinks in the summer zone. In addition to their color variations, the orchids differ greatly in size and shape and have a unique way of adapting to their environment. Besides being visually spectacular, the National Orchid Garden is an excellent educational experience. At the Botanical Garden Visitor Center you can sign up for a workshop or tour. The 1.5-hour walking tour of the Orchid Garden is an excellent way to learn about the process of hybridization and how plants pollinate and thrive in harsh climates. Once you are immersed in the orchid gardens, there you can walk around surrounded by pleasant scents and colors. In just 2 decades, farmers and researchers and market professionals in Taiwan have transformed the hobby of growing orchids into one of the largest floriculture industries in the world. The orchid has always had a unique place in Chinese culture. In addition to its great diversity of interesting shapes and fascinating color combinations, the flower has been extolled in the works of Chinese literati as a symbol of man's moral excellence or feminine beauty. And some types of orchids have long been used in Chinese herbal medicine. FRC horticulturists say Waiting points out that the main technique in growing new orchid varieties is crossbreeding, which is a technique that almost anyone can understand in a few minutes. So hobby growers have been crossbreeding for a long time. The Ecuadorian orchids were explored since colonial times. However, the great majority of the Ecuadorian orchid flora was discovered after the Second World War when researchers mainly from the USA and Sweden made botanical expeditions. Some important orchidologists counted with the help of explorers, national amateur collectors and Ecuadorian orchid associations. An updated study on the Ecuadorian flower classified determines that the plant family with the greatest number of species corresponds to orchids. In the period 2005 to 2010, the orchid family is the one with the highest number of additions, new records and taxonomic changes for the country. 340 new species have been added, 25 new records, 275 taxonomic changes and 2 new orchid genera have been identified for the country, Ecuadorian orchid and Quechua. More recent studies follow the same pattern. The more we explore, the more new species and genera are discovered. There are many orchids in the Ecuadorian territory, but the common people do not recognize them, so it takes knowledge and training to see them. They are everywhere where nature has not been cut down and burned. Only with the continued fondness for orchids, which can soon become obsession, you can learn to discover, distinguish and appreciate orchids in the wild. Naturally, we can find in our native forests extraordinary orchid flowers of great size. Most of the species are flowers of tiny size and faint colors, and there are even Ecuadorian orchids that compete with the smallest plants and flowers in the world. Today, with the reduced space in the apartments, there are thousands of collectors who have dozens of these miniature species in glass terrariums conditioned to the native climate that can be tropical or cold moorland. Orchids are also an important natural attraction of the country. The Ministry of Tourism of Ecuador in 2009 published the guide Orchids Photo Safari for Northwest Truth and Truth, in which tours are proposed by the northwestern and eastern Ecuador to observe orchids in their natural state. In Ecuador there are orchids in all the altitudinal floors between 0 and 4,500 meters. The greater quantity of endemic orchids is in the micro-habitats present in the mountainous systems, between 1,500 and 3,000 meters above sea level. In Ecuador the orchids grow from sea level to the glacier. They are the most evolved plants and more adaptable to new ecosystems. For Argentina, orchids are exquisite, attractive and colorful. They are also the queens of the garden, and although they have many followers, their care generates some fear. Although they are rustic and strong, and not delicate as it is believed, their care is not so complicated, says Gustavo Ogata, president of the Association of Producers and Growers of Orchids of Argentina APCOA. The proximity of spring inaugurates the high season for orchids, which lasts until December, although they are available all year round. Argentina also offers tips for the cultivation and preservation of this ornamental plant. Outdoors it is convenient to choose species such as Cymbidium, Dendrobium and Oncidium. The first thing to know is that they cannot be placed directly in the ground. It is necessary to do it in pots or in tree trunks such as citrus, plum or peach trees, and avoid pines and camphor trees. The ideal is to place them with east orientation to receive sun in the morning. Watering is essential. It must always be abundant, between 3 and 5 liters for a pot of 11 to 20 centimeters in diameter. What has to vary is the frequency. In summer it is every 3 or 4 days, and in winter every 1 week and 10 days. In interiors, the most common species are Phalaenopsis and Bands. In that case it is necessary to pay attention that the temperature does not descend to the 15 degrees. It is fundamental to move them away from the air conditioning because it dries a lot the atmosphere. Orchids are highly valued decorative flowers in gardens around the world due to the variety for each species of orchid. The market offers all kinds of orchids and has a high demand, therefore, it is not only cultivated for the shape of the flowers, but also for its color. There are many reasons why Colombia decided to make it its national symbol, so named in 1936 by the Colombian Academy of History. It is one of the great riches of Colombia, known and appreciated by the whole world, especially the variety called Cattleya trianae, named in honor of the Colombian naturalist José Geronimo Triana, comes from the spirited plant of fleshy leaves of the Orchidaceous family. They abound in temperate climates in mountainous regions, and much of Colombia is very mountainous. The means that orchids seek to live are places where water and nutrients are scarce. Their evolution has led them to develop water and nutrient storage organs, roots capable of photosynthesis, and flowers with strategies for reproduction. The flower is the most admirable part of this plant, and because of its aroma, shape, color, and behavior, has been the center of attention in many parts of the world. Orchids present 2 types of growth: those that grow from a single point and develop each year, adding leaves and growing a stem in proportion, and those that grow sideways, in which one of the terminal buds dies and continues growing with the appearance of new buds. In a natural environment, orchids are nourished by the organic remains that have accumulated over the years, or that little by little nature provides. Orchids reproduce sexually and asexually. 2 great advantages of asexual reproduction is to obtain plants of higher quality or purity in less time, and the other is that the reproduction can be done in any part of the year, and thus the plant blooms more than once a year. The orchid is, without a doubt, one of the most recognized and exported flowers around the world, and every day more and more people are joining the preservation of this natural beauty.